Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum, and welcome to another episode of 5 Influential Horror. Today, I am joined with a Twitter friend named CeCe, and we are going to be talking her top 5 influential horror movies and why she picked them. Thank you so much for making time to do this. I'm excited.
Oh, me too. I'm glad we were able to finally coordinate and get together.
Yeah, no, for sure. Me too. Life is always crazy, and I'm trying to get in so much before school starts for my kid, and I'm like, it's been an interesting few weeks trying to cram stuff in last minute. So I'm glad we were able to do it for sure.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. So you have a shop called CeCe's Candy Corner.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is the cutest thing ever. It's these super cute, very 90s beads. I have two. I bought my partner has two as well. And then I even got my little ones. These were for my kiddo. So I'm going to put links for everything for you down in the description, including your shop. And then you also have a pop culture podcast called CeYouAt podcast.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just talk a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do before we jump in.
Yeah. So I actually, just a quick TLDR for my podcasting experience. I actually started with a partner in the past. We did a horror / Halloween Horror Nights podcast called the Scream Queens podcast, and that went on for a good while. And you know, it really kind of built me as my, started like my brand and everything. So from there, like we had our differences. We wanted to work on different projects. So then CeYouAt actually started while we were doing the Scream Queens, because I wanted to just do something on my own as well. It started as a movie podcast only.
Okay.
It used to be called CeYouAt the Movies, which was a really cute name, but I wanted to expand and talk about other things. So I had to change the name up a little. But now it's like pretty much anything pop culture. I do still talk a lot about movies and Halloween Horror Nights, but I do want to open up and talk a lot about more like different things, music, conventions, stuff like that. So there's that in my podcast journey. And then just, I really love horror, which obviously we're going to talk here about it. And that's like, just like, I love the horror community and everything. And I've met a lot of wonderful people through Twitter as well, and many others. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I do. I'm into pro wrestling as well. So I may talk about that on the podcast at some point.
Yeah.
And then like with the shop, it was just something like I had these beads since I was younger, and some of these are like from back then.
Oh wow, okay.
Like, okay, I need to do something with these, and there, and people actually like the design, so I'm just rolling with it.
Yeah, and it's funny with the beads in particular, I had been trying to find, like, I tried to make them myself, not quite exactly like this, but I had gotten the bands and I was like, I'm going to make, my partner and I like matching bracelets. And because I wanted to do something like what you ended up doing for us, which was the blue and green alternating. And then mine has extra blues together. And then hers has extra greens together as like this cute little, like, we're always together thing. So I wanted to make them, and it's just not something I was apparently built to do. And I had horrible luck right around literally the same time you started posting about wanting to make bracelets. So, kind of little meant to be. So I was like super excited, and they're great. And then I had to steal these because these are for my kiddo, but he saw like the bright ones and he was like, I would like those. And that was when I reached out and was like, can I get two? And just like the rainbows. And so anyway, so they're really cool. I just ordered the Final Girl ones. Yes. And so, anyway, yeah, I love what you're doing. I think these are so cute. And I'm glad other people are enjoying them too. That's awesome.
I didn't expect it to go where it's going. So I'm really, really happy. Because like I sit here and it's not like I know anyone can do this, because a lot of people are. The Taylor Swift movement kind of started the friendship bracelet thing again as well. And yeah, and so a lot of people are doing it, and that's great. And they're giving them out, and I'm planning on giving some out soon, like during Halloween Horror Nights when I go to the parks and stuff like that. But yeah, like I say, like anyone can do it, but it does take a lot of patience. And like I try to curate specific designs for specific characters or things. So it does take some brain work and physical work as well.
Yeah, the creativity shows. I love some of the stuff that you've come up with. It's really cute. And you do customs as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So, and again, all the links for everything are going to be in the description for this episode. So you can go order your own bracelets and follow along with her on her socials too. So, okay. So, your list. We're going to start with the first one you sent me, which is Scream.
Oh, good place to start. Like really, like even with my life in general, I mean, because it's probably the oldest thing on my list
It
anyway.
is.
Yeah,
Yep.
so okay, so I have a weird history with horror.
Okay.
I've talked about this on multiple podcast episodes, but basically I've when I was younger, I didn't like horror. Like I was never one of those kids who kind of started that way or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I remember my dad had Chucky on once and I was terrified. Okay, so
Fair enough. Yeah.
yeah, so like I was always, and then even like it was weird because I would like try some things like to be cool as a kid and then watch like certain things. Like I feel like I know I watched Scream.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure I watched Halloween H2O at one point. Like
Hmm.
little stuff here and there I would
Yeah.
watch with my friend.
Yeah.
Um but then there was also a lot of times where I would go back to being scared and I really didn't want to venture out. Um,
Yeah.
and that actually even led up into my like teens. I don't think
Okay.
I really got into super into horror until maybe my mid 20s.
Okay.
I'm 35 now, so
Hmm.
yeah, so it's been a weird journey of like will I won't I. um but
Yeah.
specifically Scream is one of those gateway horror movies for anybody,
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
It it really was a wonderful time for it to have come out when it did.
Hmm.
I mean, Wes was working on the Nightmare movies far
Hmm.
before that, but
Hmm.
he just really broke the mold when he made Scream because at that time it was a lot of goofy, campy horror 80s movies that not a lot of people were
Yeah.
into unless you were a weirdo like us and into cool stuff.
Yeah.
Because I go back and watch all that now, but
Same. Yeah.
yeah, it was just I know the horror industry was kind of, I don't want to say failing, but it just like it wasn't
Kind of.
putting out
Yeah.
enough in the general populace.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this movie is very influential not only to me but just to everybody, I think. Um, but to me, it holds a lot of like 90s nostalgia.
Hmm.
Just remembering, when I watched it as a kid and just remembering like I think I saw Scream 3 in theaters actually. I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure my best childhood best friend's mom brought us to see it. Um
Yeah.
so yeah, the Scream franchises in general have my heart and always has, but the original I think will always be my favorite. I
Yeah.
think it's still the best. I don't think there will ever be anything like Scream, especially the way that it changed the game. Um,
Yeah.
Became super meta, which a lot of movies like yeah, like that was the first big movie that I feel like
Hmm.
really was self-aware
Yeah.
and just great. So I don't want to like there's not a whole lot to say in terms of like I'm really bad at explaining things that I like. I don't know
That's
why,
okay. No,
but
I think what you said is super. Well, so Scream is on my influential horror as well. Scream is one of my favorite franchises, which is really ironic considering I'm not like super into slashers, but
okay.
it's for a lot of the same reasons.
Mhm.
Wes Craven kind of had this thing about bringing life to things when they were in the process of dying out, which is you said it perfectly. Like this was during a time where we really weren't getting a lot of unique takes on horror, a lot of serious takes on horror. Because one of the things that Scream does, in my opinion, and it does really well, is it's able to sort of dissect and make fun of itself, but still be very respectful to the subgenre of slashers and to horror in general.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
because we've gotten a lot of silly takes from that. You know, from Scream came scary movie, that whole like super over the top silly parody stuff, and we've had things like that, forever. And like you're talking about coming out of the 80s camp style of like films and horror movies and stuff, it really was a seriously uncomfortable film, but it had a lot to say, and it sort of just breathed life into slashers again in a way that hadn't really been done before. So I
Yeah.
totally agree that it's influential across the board, because this was one of the original franchises, one of two, that I legitimately followed as I got older, because if I'm not mistaken, because I'll be 35 in like a month and a half. So we're the same age. And I'm pretty sure I saw Scream 3 in theaters as well. And then I also went and saw 4, and of course 5 and 6 as it does, because
Yeah.
we're older now. But I remember seeing them, young, and being and following them as the last, the original 4, the last 2 came out. And it just was one of the things that I just have always said, as long as they keep making them, I will pay to go see them in theaters, because it's just a franchise that I have a lot of love for. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree, and, you can't beat the iconic Ghostface mask as
God,
well, and, like, the whole, like, what's the word? Why can't I think? It's like, who is it? What is that term? Why
the
can't I
Who
think?
Done It?
Who done it? Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Like, I wrote a whole play about, or not a play, but, like, a my college class, I did, like, a whole who done it, but, yeah,
oh,
that's the
cool.
word I was thinking of.
Who Done It? Yeah,
Yes, I love that aspect too, because it
yeah,
makes you think while you're watching, but also gives you a lot of rewatchability, because the first time you watch it, to
yeah,
me personally, I'm not trying to analyze who the killer is. That's just me, but I know a lot of people do that.
yeah.
So what I like to do is go back after I find out who the killers are, and I like to kind of see little things that I
That you
missed.
might have missed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like specifically with Amber and Richie from Scream
Hmm.
5, their like dynamic, it changes when you rewatch it. Like you notice a lot
Yes.
more.
You
So
do. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. 5 and 6 in particular were, I think, I'm trying to think. 2, I didn't know. 3, and then 4. Yeah, I think of all of the films, 5 and 6 were actually the only ones I predicted before the ending, before it was revealed. I knew from the hospital scene with Amber and Richie's interaction, I was like, "Oh, I think it's
Yeah.
them." And then in 6, small spoiler, but at this point the movie's kind of been out for a while. In 6, I predicted 2 of the 3.
Okay.
So, when they announced that Quinn was dead, I was like, I don't think I'm buying it. Like there's that scene where the what's the dad's name? The cop.
Detective Bailey.
Bailey, yeah. So
Yeah.
Bailey comes out and he's like, putting on the dog and pony show, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure it's him and that girl that they're pretending is dead, but she's not dead. Like I had like from that, there was just something about the way that set up. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's them. Yeah, and ironically, the one I didn't predict was Ethan. Is that his name?
Ethan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they kept, putting it in your face. I was like, okay, well, they're just doing that. It's not him, but then
Yeah, it was. It was like it threw you off on that one for sure.
yeah. So, but I do watch them to try to figure out who the killers are. But I think I still agree though that there's a lot to still look at when you rewatch them. I mean, I still, and they're kind of like comfort horror for me. Like I go back
Yes.
to those movies all the time and watch them. It's just something, I don't know. There's just something about that franchise that I genuinely love. Even though I was not super impressed with 6, I'll still go pay to see 7 opening
Oh
weekend.
yeah. Yeah. I actually liked 6, I think, better than 5.
A lot of people did. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I loved 5 when it came out, but I feel like
Hmm.
there was a lot of buzz around it, and I feel like because
Yeah.
of that, I maybe ruined it for myself, like with the
I
killers
know
and
what you
things like
mean.
that. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, absolutely agree. It is a comfort the original is a comfort film. I will literally put it on anytime.
Mhm,
The rest of the franchise I will watch anytime as well.
mhm.
But yeah, that's definitely one of those that's become like a comfort thing for sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love it. I love Scream. I'm a big Scream fan. I don't have all of my ghost face cups. The other night I had all 3 of them, but here's one of them.
Oh my god, that's so cute.
Isn't it cute?
That's so cute.
So, oh, I forget the name of the count. I know he has like blonde hair. I swear I've seen you two interact. I love horror. That loves horror. Gah, I can't think of who it is. He posted a mystery box short
Mhm.
version. I went and got one, and this was one of the items that was in it.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And
I
then my
have so
part
many cups though, that's the only issue. Yeah.
You know, it's really it's kind of a problem. I have a lot of them also, and I still buy new ones like on it's sad. I have like so I have a coffee one that has like it's a ghost face with like heart eyes and it says no, you hang up and it's
Oh,
got like
yeah.
red I'm sure you've seen that. It's got like the red hearts all over it. And then it has like my partner got me that for Valentine's Day and it's got my name on the bottom of it. And then I have a bigger, like a round one that I use for water. That's the one from the Scream 6 when I went and saw it at AMC. It was one of those cups. It's got the ghost face figurine that goes on the top.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Yeah, I
that's
got that one too.
one. Yeah, I don't know. It's the cup thing is it's a problem.
Yeah,
But I don't know how to stop. So here we are. But yeah.
that's fair. But yeah,
Um.
I
Okay.
mean, everybody knows
So
Scream. I don't think I have much more to say about that one.
yeah.
It's
No,
just I
I
think it
think you
should
hit it.
be on most people's lists, even if they're not, like you said, super into slashers. I think it still breaks that mold of just something that everybody can
It's
enjoy.
different. It's still
Mhm.
different. I think it fits a lot of the standard tropes because that's
Yeah.
part of the game with Scream, but I think that it still has, like you said, it's very unique in general, the whole
Mhm.
franchise.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So your number 2 is Midsommar.
Yes. So this one's weird.
Agreed?
If you know me and if you've known me since this movie came out, a lot of people affiliate me with this movie. To
Okay.
start, I'm actually a huge Florence Pugh fan. I'm sure you've seen that.
Oh, yes. I
So
probably
what
commented on those things. Like, I love her. Yes,
yeah, it's
I'm
like
with
what
you.
can't she do? I mean,
Yes.
but her performance in this was wild and
Yeah.
very well done.
Mhm.
Um this movie, I decided so I saw the trailers like here and there and I was like this looks weird, but okay, kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I decided one day, on a day where I barely had like any sleep, to go to the movies by myself and watch this movie.
Okay.
Came out a new
All right.
person, I think. But
Life-changing experience.
yeah, it was very I I don't even know. Like when I came out of the movie, I did not know what life was. I was just like, what just happened? Okay, so like a lot of people cannot rewatch this movie. I
Mhm.
will say that. I've noticed that
Mhm.
this and Hereditary, a lot of people
Yeah.
cannot seem to rewatch, and understandably so. They're both, and I actually love both of them a lot, but I think
Okay.
Midsummer is the one that's I'm a little more obsessed with. But
Mhm.
um, this movie was very different as
Mhm.
well. Same with Hereditary. I think Ari Aster brings a lot to the table in the horror world.
Yeah.
He's one of my current like so I have like a list kind of my current like horror masters. Like he's one of them.
Mhm.
Jordan Peele's another. Like
Mhm.
so yeah, I mean he
Yeah.
just is very unique. A lot of his stuff is very solemn,
Mhm.
but also very real.
Mhm.
And so but I feel like he takes the surreal as well and kind of blends it.
Yeah.
So like this movie, yeah, when they're like high and stuff like that, you can see like the flowers breathing and just like things like that. It's just
Mhm.
interesting, and I love the writing. The characters are very dislikable in this movie, especially Christian, the boyfriend.
Yes. So true.
He's just
He
horrible.
sucks. Yeah. Yeah.
um This movie though, I don't know, it was just so beautiful, I think,
Mhm.
because it was filmed during the day, and you don't see a lot of horror filmed during the day. So you don't see a lot of, like, that kind of beauty, if that makes sense, like the bright
Yeah.
colors, things like that.
No,
So
you're absolutely right. It's gloomy, but in a way that it's not just based on the settings and the like set pieces and like it's
exactly.
not it doesn't rely on darkness
Mhm.
to relay like atmosphere and general
Exactly.
vibes. Yeah. No, you're
Yeah,
right.
and that's the thing, but it's still super uncomfortable in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. Even though it's so bright and things, it's very uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Um But so, like, for me, I guess this movie just kind of I don't know, it was very unique to me. Now I know a lot of people compare it to, oh my god, Wicker Man, which
Yeah.
I got those vibes for sure,
Sure.
but
Maybe some influence a
I
little. Yeah.
yeah, I just say a dash of influence. I'd say they took it completely, like,
It's
different.
still a very unique take on that concept though, I
Yeah,
would say.
absolutely. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
like, I didn't see it that way. I didn't see it was like comparable, but I do see the influence in there. Um, I do like that it took place like in Sweden, so it was like different um culture, but like also shocking, to the people who weren't from there. Just the story's really like rough, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
gaslighting and a lot of like
Oh, yeah.
um what's the word, like I don't want to use grooming in the sense of like what you
I
normally
know
think,
what
but
you
like
mean,
they were
the
grooming Danny to be in the cult basically. So like she goes from being gaslit by her boyfriend to be groomed by a cult. So like really she smiles at the end, but she really isn't in a good situation regardless, unfortunately.
yeah, it's I
Um
think it's a temporary take on a moment of release is
Relief,
kind of how I
yeah,
take it. Yeah, it's like a,
exactly.
okay, that's good for me that that happened because, F him, but, like, also, now you gotta deal with everything else that's
Yeah.
comes after that part. Yeah,
Exactly. So,
yeah.
I just think that the reason why I love it was because a lot of the colors were just different. The story was very different,
Mhm.
solemn, but also like some people found like that they could relate to her throughout the movie for the most part.
Yeah, sure.
Dealing with that, and but yeah, I don't know. It just became one of those movies that stuck with me.
Yeah,
I really like it, and I can rewatch it anytime. A lot of people can't, like I said, but
yeah.
it's just, yeah, I don't know. I love the flowers. The May Queen stuff is just really pretty.
It is pretty.
And so, yeah, I don't know. And the kills were cool, of course. Especially Sam. Sam is the character. They do like that Viking. I forgot what it's called, where they
I
hang
know
him
what you're
up in
talking
the.
about, the
Yes,
yep,
has a name, but I cannot think of it at the moment. But
yeah,
yeah, that scene was really cool.
yeah,
Yeah, unique kills and things like that too. Like,
yeah,
it's not just everything you see often. So,
yeah,
yeah, I don't
and
have
I
much
think
more to say about it, but
yeah,
it's
no, and I think to add to what you're talking about specifically with the kills is because they are all in the daytime. It really is. I think it adds to like the oh my god of the moment because you are so used to seeing these people be happy and flowy and they're all in like pale colors and everything is so bright and sunny in the middle of nature and all these things. So when those darker or more like obscure things happen, it's almost like if as a viewer it takes you longer to process what you just saw because before that everything was happy and fine and then it's this very like, oh, that's really messed up or whatever, and
yeah.
then you have to like process it because then they move on and they go back to the
Mhm.
light side of things again, and it's an interesting jerk back and forth between
Yeah,
being unsettled and trying to find happiness in what you're looking at, just kind of overall.
for sure. Yeah, the contrasts are very, like,
Yeah, yeah,
much there.
smart filmmaking in that regard, because you're right. I mean, I've seen plenty of, and this actually goes for horror games too. There a lot of times when people create things that are in the horror genre, they tend to rely on just like fear of the dark to invoke
Mhm.
fear. And so then there ends up being like, everything overall ends up being lackluster because it's like, well, yeah, I mean, the dark is scary, but God, there's gotta be something like in the dark. Like it can't just be dark all the time. And then, there has to be layers to it, and for there to be like no dark in this and it be the way it is, I think is what makes it so like shocking when those moments
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's only, like, one scene, I think, where something actually technically happens in the dark.
Oh
It's
yeah,
when the one guy goes to get, like, the book,
the
but
book.
you don't really see what happens
No.
after. So it's really cool because
Yeah.
later they find his body parts in the garden. Like, it's just wild. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's it. And I have to say too, talking about relatability, I think that there's like even these moments where you almost feel like what they're saying makes sense. Like I had moments like that when I was watching it because it was like, that like, and I know people make fun of this scene, but I honestly thought it was like one of my favorite scenes in the movie when they're doing the circle and they're
Yes.
all going through the emotion at the same time.
Yes.
And it's like, I realize that to like some people that might seem silly, but can you imagine just for like a second a world where women like actually went through things together like that and what that would do like
Mhm.
as a whole? Like I was so like that hive mind thing of like
Mhm.
being with someone in the moment and going through what they're going through instead of just like, it's okay,
Yeah.
like it was so like that scene, as silly as it might seem, was really powerful because I'm like,
Mhm.
honestly, that would have been appealing to me too. Of like, I don't have to be alone anymore. I don't have to feel like I'm dealing with all this shit alone anymore because now there's people who will go through it with me.
Exactly, and, like,
You know,
the them screaming all together, like, that seems therapeutic to me
honestly,
personally.
same. I'm like, man, can we just do that? Just all stand in a circle and scream until we feel better? Like,
Yes, yes.
I won't tell
I
you how many
agree.
times I'd probably have to do that in a day, but that part's irrelevant. It's
But
yeah.
yeah, I don't know, Ari Aster is very unique, and he's just one of my favorites, so this is probably my favorite movie of his, so I decided to
Mhm.
go with that.
Yeah, no, it's a good choice. Yeah. If drastically switching gears here, because your third
Oh,
one is
absolutely. Actually, one of the 2 still would be
really
drastically switching.
yeah. So your third is House of a Thousand Corpses.
That's what I thought. Okay. Absolutely. So you have to understand who I am. I'm like a weird pastel goth girl who also loves trash. So like, okay. So like you go from of course you go from Midsummer and how beautiful the flowers are and how beautiful everything is, the landscape. We move over to the Firefly house.
Total,
Yeah.
just abrupt shift of gears. Yeah.
Yes, and there's a reason why this is on here, big
Okay.
reason,
Yeah.
actually, because a lot of people Rob Zombie movies get a lot of hate, unfortunately.
Yes,
Um,
they do.
however, I don't think all of them are worth the hate. But anyway, that's a whole nother subject. um, this specific movie is actually what got me back into horror. So
Okay.
that is why it's on my list.
Okay.
It's another also comfort movie I feel like I can just put on
Oh, geez.
whenever. Yeah. No, I mean, okay, because like, yeah, there's all the gruesome shit, but like, also it's
Yeah,
really like the group of kids in the beginning kind of make it funny and fun. There's a
that's
lot of
fair. No, that's
camp.
fair.
Yeah, there's a lot of camp in the movie too. Like even with the
Yeah, it's a
firefly
weird
flaming.
balance. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So
Yeah.
like, you got baby's little show and grandpa. Like you got all this weird shit too. So
Mhm. Yeah, no,
um
you're right.
yeah.
You're right. Yeah,
So there's a lot of humor. Captain
yeah.
Spaulding also, and just
Mhm.
like I don't know. So like yeah, that's why it's on my list. Is because it got me back into horror. This was I think when it came out, I was in high school. I want to say.
That sounds right. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, because I
yeah.
think it was one of those movies at the time that everybody was saying was like super scary and super gory and like
Mhm.
so it was one of those that like
Yeah,
oh you had to watch it because you heard that it was
yeah,
bad or scary or whatever
sure.
so
Yeah, I think it came out in, like, 2005?
yeah, it's
That
gotta
sounds right.
be. It's gotta
Yeah.
be 5 or 6 somewhere in there when I was in high school for sure. Because I
Yeah.
graduated in '06.
I graduated in '07, 2003.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little older than I thought it was,
So
but
I was probably a freshman. I think I was a freshman at that point,
that
yeah.
means I was in the 8th grade. I was in middle school.
So, yeah, so,
Yeah.
I think it was, like, my ex and his family
Mhm.
used to watch a lot of horror, and I just never really did because I said I was, like, scared and things. So I'm pretty sure I watched it with them the first time I watched it.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it was just one of those that I probably didn't love it when I first saw it, but I don't know, it just somehow became something that I ended up, like,
Hmm.
holding on to later,
Mhm.
because I actually really fell in love with, Rob Zombie's Halloween when it first came out too.
Yeah. Yeah,
I just
I liked the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know what it is. I find, like, trashy people fascinating, I don't know. Like, I don't watch a lot of reality TV though, like, I don't watch that stuff. But, like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I
I
come
get
from a
what you
small
mean, though.
town. I come
Yeah.
from a small town where, like, there's a lot of, like, rednecks and things like that, which, whatever. But, like, I do find, like,
Yeah.
these people fascinating because I find, like, this to me is a love letter to Texas Chainsaw, 100%.
Yeah.
That's
That makes
how I
sense. Yeah.
feel. And
Yeah.
I was always scared to watch that movie growing up. And so I actually didn't watch that one until well after I'd seen this, I think.
Okay.
But like over the years, I've kind of like, watched it more and putting
Sure.
it together as that being like Rob Zombie's love letter to that movie. But yeah, I just love
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated too in true crime and things. So I think like it had that element of that because
Yeah.
it is,
You're right.
well, because, like Leatherface is loosely based off Ed Gein, so I feel
Ed
like they
Gein.
kind of pulled the
Mhm.
same thing with this
Yeah.
because
No,
you have
you're right. Yeah.
yeah, you have, like, the furniture with, like, bones and skin and all that, so, like, that's
Yeah.
always been fascinating, and I don't know, I just love the camp, like I said, the humor that's involved, but also I'm a big fan of
Mhm.
gore,
Yeah.
not, like, extremely, I won't watch, like, those, like, dark web frickin' videos of, like, real gore or anything like that, but I
I hear
like
you.
movie
It's a
gore.
safe place to know when it's not real. It's like fake.
Exactly. I don't
Yeah.
even watch the TLC channel because I don't like surgery videos, but I will watch
Well,
yeah, but I'll
the
watch
House of
these
2000
movies.
Corpses, sign me up.
Exactly, and the next movie.
I was just thinking that too. I was like, and the
Yeah,
next one.
yes, so, yeah, I'm a big fan of horror gore,
I
fake
get, yeah,
stuff.
no, same. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, so, like, that part was intriguing,
Yeah.
Karen Black is just great. I loved
Oh,
her
totally
as
agree.
Mama Firefly,
She's great.
and
Yeah,
yeah, and
totally
Sid
agree.
Haig has my heart,
Of course.
forever.
Yeah.
Captain Spaulding, just you fall in love with him because he's just such an asshole, but he's so funny.
He is funny.
Like, and Bill Moseley's another one of my favorites, so it's just
Mhm.
like, I don't know, I just love that movie, and I feel like it's something I can just put on and just chill in the background with. Um, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's because it got me back into it, and it kinda got me to come out of my shell about being scared.
Okay.
That's why it's on my list.
Do you think it's also one that kind of made you realize your, like, fascination with the gore stuff? Because like,
Yeah.
I was in denial about the gore appeal for me for a really, really long time, and then I watched Martyrs, and I was like
Oh god, I've heard about that. I wanna
I
see
guess
it.
I it can't, like, it's good. It's rough. It's not a comfy, cozy movie by any stretch of the
Yeah.
imagination, and I wouldn't say the ending was very happy per se, but it is it's a journey. It's definitely a film with a lot of layers, which, doesn't always work in the horror genre. Sometimes if there's too many layers, things get lost in translation, and you're like, "Well, this movie sucks." I didn't think that was the case with Martyrs. It does push the envelope with body horror,
Mhm.
but I think it had such a, like, a, for lack of a better word, like, it had a purpose. There was a point. And
Yeah.
I think that made it a much easier watch, if that makes sense. Like,
Okay.
um, but I was in, like, denial about my affection for gore for a really long time until I saw that movie. And so I was just curious if this was kind of like that for you, where it made you real like look into more gory films. Like, was it things that you like kind of realized from watching it?
Yeah, I think so. Like I
Yeah.
said, I think it kinda opened up a whole new thing, like, in general, in, like, a
Absolutely.
lot of ways for horror.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure, like,
Okay.
I'm sure this is one of those that
Yeah.
helps with the gore aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. Which probably opened up the gates for your number 4,
Yes.
which is Terrifier 2.
Yes, and I will talk a little about the first one because you
Sure.
have to.
Yeah.
2's on the list because I was thinking more of a widespread influence, not just me. But
Mhm.
yeah, so, like, a couple years ago, I think I watched the first one. I think the first one came out in 2016, but I didn't watch it until 2018.
Okay.
It was when I was, like, getting even more into horror because, yes, I had those years where I, like, would watch it, but I
Yeah.
was not, like, super into it until,
I
like,
gotcha.
maybe the last few years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so this was the time where I was, like, catching up. Like, because when
Mhm.
I was a kid, I watched a lot of teenage movies and, like, raunchy comedies. I didn't watch horror. So, like, I'm really, like, there's so much out there that I still even haven't seen. So I was,
Yeah.
like, catching up and whatever, asking
Yeah.
for recommendations.
Okay.
Someone was like, "Hey, there's this really I can say that right on here."
Yeah. Yeah, YouTube, I think, is fine as long as we make it past the first 4 minutes, so you're fine.
Okay, well, there's this really I'll just change it a little, but there was this really messed up clown movie I wanted to see, and I'm like, "Okay, sure." So I put it on. I think I watched it by myself,
No. Okay.
and I had heard about that there was a really rough scene in it, but to me,
Mhm.
I don't know, it wasn't as and it still probably isn't as bad as, like, a lot of people feel that it is, the hacksaw scene.
Oh,
Um, yeah. To me, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've seen worse, but
I you know what I think it boils down to? I think it boils down to conversation. It's the same thing as, like, going into films. Like, I went into Barbarian unable to ignore hype. and it absolutely ruined the film for me. I did not think Barbarian was that great. I didn't think it was that unique. Like I can rattle off movies that it reminds me of. Like I went in with all this expectation of this crazy, wild, over the top, you're never gonna suspect it kind of thing. And I was like, I mean,
I'm
I guess.
sad that
Like,
I'm sad that you didn't get to see it before people started saying
I
all that,
know.
because
Yeah.
personally, all I saw was, like, the one trailer that was very
Which is a
vague.
lie.
Yeah, and then I went and saw it, and to me it was, but now that I
That's
think on
it's
it, it's
yeah.
really not as, weird as I thought it was when I saw it. So, like, I agree with you.
It's hard to get past it, but I think that's what happens with films like Terrifier because
Yeah.
people build it up in their heads and then they tell people how crazy it is and then it gets to you too and then you finally watch it, you're like you either sometimes you agree, but most of the time you're like, I mean, I get like that was what honestly the same thing happened with Evil Dead Rise. Same thing.
Oh,
I was like,
no.
I guess, like I don't know,
Aw.
sure.
Yeah, that's what's hard about social media too,
And
is,
being
like.
in the community, like it's
Mhm.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be for sure. But yeah, so I mean, it is intense. Like, I don't think I've seen anything like it before. Apparently, it is in some other, like, lesser known movies, something similar, a kill like that, from what I've heard.
Oh, okay.
But Damien, like, really just changed the game. My Terrifier 2, we'll move on to Terrifier 2 now, because
Yeah.
this was actually, both movies were Indiegogo movies. Um,
Yes.
which, wow. Like,
Right.
and being a fan of Terrifier since 2018, I feel
Mhm.
like I was kind of on my own with that,
Mhm.
because as much as I love the first movie, I
Mhm.
won't say it's a good movie.
Okay.
There's not a lot of plot, it's basically just there to be there, like a slasher. Just, and I think a lot of it has to do with just reintroducing art. Um
From All Hallows Eve.
yes,
Yeah.
because it was a different actor back then as well. So, like,
Right.
introducing David, I think, has really.
As yeah.
Yes. So I think that
Yeah.
was a big thing, and we just kind of needed to see him do what he does, which
Yeah.
is fair.
Yeah.
Terrifier 2 took that up to another level, gave us
Mhm.
Sienna and Jonathan,
Mhm.
and gave us someone to people to root for. It gave us more of a story, and there's more coming. In Terrifier 3,
3.
so I'm excited about that. But yeah, so they started as an Indiegogo movie. This movie, I was prepared to be one of the only people I knew to go see it, whatever. I was going to
Yeah.
see it as many times as I could just to give it the money. But
Yeah.
wow, I
It
did not think it was going to do what it did. And I hate that I thought that way, but I'm so proud of it.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so proud of it. It insane. I think it stayed in theaters for like,
For
I don't
forever
even know.
because yeah, well, and to its defense, right, like we typically think that way because of how like the Hollywood types have treated horror over the
Yes.
years. You typically immediately go to this place where like new visions, new directors, new writers, all that stuff gets super dismissed if it's not one of the mainstream franchises that they know are going to make them money. And this one came out of nowhere, like
Yes.
absolutely no, like no one. I mean, it broke like I don't even remember how many records. It broke so many box office records.
Hmm.
And I mean, and I think some people, who went into it after it kind of got popular, I think those people forget that this isn't, like you said, this is an indie film. This is
Hmm.
not from the big production. This isn't owned by like Paramount or any of the big players. This is an indie film that just came in and like showed them like people will pay to come see horror in the theaters. Like, and I
Yeah.
feel like that's why right now we're getting this resurgence of stuff. Like, I mean, tons of shit's coming out, getting ready to come out. We're finally getting things I've been waiting like 6 years for. Looking at you, Five Nights at Freddy's. Like, we're
Yes.
finally getting things because they're like, oh shit, people will pay to come see this.
Yeah.
Duh, we've been saying that for decades.
Yes, and I'm so glad they pushed so hard for it to be released in theaters, because I feel
Yes.
like if they didn't, it
Yeah.
might
No.
have the same
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, it got put in theaters, then it came out for a little while, then they got it re-released because people were asking to see it, because it was only in theaters for so many days, I
For a
think. And
period of
then
time.
yeah, and then they brought it back in, and it was just, I was watching this as it was happening. I
Mhm.
followed Damien, David, all of them on social media, and
Yeah.
like I've just like I don't know. I've met them a few times too, so like I'm kind of tight knit with a big group of like they call them Artiacts. They're a bunch of like
Uh-huh.
fans of Art the Clown,
Cute.
stuff like that.
That's
But
cute.
yeah, so like there's a big community there. A lot of them were actually in the movie. So some people I'm friends with on Facebook were in the movie. They like paid the Indiegogo price to like be a certain part, and
Right.
it's just really cool. And then now that they made enough money, I'm pretty sure Damien did connect with some sort of studio, and he's gonna be able to have a lot better of a budget on 3. And it's just wow. He works with practical effects, which is another reason why I love
Yep.
these movies. Probably the biggest reason why. I am a huge proponent of practical
Yep.
effects.
Same. Yep.
I don't mind if it's mixed with CGI a bit to like make
Yeah.
things happen, but practical is my
That's where it's
favorite.
at. Yeah.
Yes. Even the animatronic he made for Allie in the bed after she like is all gross and she like says hi to her mom, like that was an actual animatronic that he made, which is
Oh, wow.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
this movie like as a whole just really knocked it out of the park with the world. And I know people were even going to see it just because of like the buzz around it, people
Mhm.
saying that they were fainting and throwing up in the theaters. I think that helped a lot of the press.
I think so too. That always works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because like anytime I hear something like that, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna challenge myself to go watch it.
I do the same
So
thing. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. Let me go prove this wrong.
yeah, but no,
Yeah.
it was gross. It was
Mhm.
fun. It was hilarious actually because David is great as Art the Clown, and
Mhm.
I could talk about them all day long. But I just yeah, they're great. He's a great person. I've met him a few times, and so that's another reason why I really love it is because
Yeah.
David and Damien are also really good people. So I like to
Yeah.
support them. So it's like, there's
Yeah.
this whole full circle around it. But yeah, just I cannot believe it did what it did. And I think that it really helped pave the way for more horror coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to argue otherwise, honestly, because I feel like by the time this went to streaming, by that point, we had already gotten all these new announcements about like all these things that were, they're in the works, things that people were starting to work on and get
Mhm.
involved in. And I think it's and it's good because I think the other thing it's done is, yeah, I mean the bigger players are gonna get some of this, right? Because they're gonna start making the stuff again and get the money from that or whatever. However, I also think this is also helping for more indie filmmakers to kind of come in
Yes.
as well, because now we've seen what indie can do, which we as horror fans, we already knew that. But
Mhm.
the bigger picture folks are now like, okay, so like indie filmmakers is something that might be a good thing to invest in. And then it helps too, because you've got things like Shutter and Screenbox also opening the door for indie filmmakers to be able to get their films, to more people, to create a
Mhm.
following, to get these things later on, their next projects, in theaters and kind of like out to the masses. So it's really, you're exactly right. It is definitely paved an interesting path for future horror movies for sure.
Agreed. Especially right now with the strikes and everything. A
Yeah.
lot of indie studios are like this is their time really to
Yeah.
shine
Yeah.
because yeah, as
They'll
long
be
as they
able to
can
be the only ones putting stuff out.
yep,
Yep.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I just hope that, it continues from here because it really was this wild moment when it just kept getting added weekends to the movie theaters. And I was like, oh my
Wild.
God. I think I saw it 3 times. I wanted to see it
Oh,
more, but because I really wanted to give them my
yeah.
money and support. But yeah, and I'll continue to do that with other horror movies. Actually, David did another one. I don't know if you're familiar, because it wasn't like super like put out there.
Mhm.
I think it had a lot less of a budget too. Was the mean one? So basically, he was like
The Grinch.
the Grinch one. Yeah,
I
they
haven't
couldn't
seen
say
it.
Grinch, but
Eh.
yeah, they put it in theaters too, and I went and saw it.
Oh, I didn't know that. I remember
Yeah,
I heard a lot about it, and then I couldn't find it anywhere until it was kind of like already past its moment, I think.
yeah,
And then and I ended up not going back to watch it. I probably will eventually. Maybe it'll make my Christmas list or my Christmas watch
yeah.
list.
It's not
Yeah.
great, but it is funny as hell. And
Okay.
okay, if you love like camp, you'll love it. It's just the budget's just not
I'm
there.
not
But like the
even
acting wasn't even that bad. Like the acting was pretty good. I mean,
I think
David's
that's
hilarious.
I think
So
it's an interesting thing to go into films like that expecting
a
some like
masterpiece.
profound, yeah, like I think there it's fine to separate it into a category of like just fun craziness. Like it doesn't have to
Exactly.
be And the movies that I have a hard time with that is the ones who pretend to be
Yes.
super serious, really gritty, and they're really just not, versus ones that know what they are. So, like,
Yes.
another one would be Blood and Honey. I think, I saw people like
Yeah.
ranting, worst movie I've ever seen. I'm like, I'm not 100% sure, like, what you went into this film expecting, but I feel like you probably got what you should have expected.
It's
It's,
probably similar to that, yeah, I didn't see
yeah,
that one either, but I imagine that it was probably similar to that. It was
yeah,
just it was fun. That's
yeah,
all it needed to be, so
yeah. And that's fine. Horror doesn't have to be profound every time you watch it. It can be something fun. So,
exactly.
yeah. So, your last one is a show. And
Mhm.
actually, I think it's the only thing on this list that's never been on the influential series before, which is actually kind of strange because I've been doing this series for over, I don't know, over a year, so a year and God, like almost 2 years. I don't know, something like that. And that's Stranger Things.
Yeah, have you had other shows on here?
The only other show so far is oh, what's it? Oh my God, Twin Peaks.
Oh, yeah, that's another big one, I think.
And I want to say that's the
There
only.
is a movie of it too, I think.
There is. We
So
specifically talked to the show. That was Chad Lutsky. He's a horror author and film enthusiast. But he like has the guy that did the special effects in the original Evil Dead movie, like, just comes over and hangs out with him sometimes. Like, he's gotten
nice.
some like pretty cool stuff going on. But he picked that one, and it's not a show I have ever seen. I haven't watched
I
Twin
haven't
Peaks.
either.
And so we just kind of talked about it as a no spoiler kind of, whatever. But Stranger Things, I have not watched the last season because
Oh.
I get very like emotionally attached to storylines, and I have to be ready to watch them. And
Okay.
so, like, another really wild example of this is like I cannot bring myself emotionally yet to watch the Robert Pattinson's Batman. I need to, because I'm like a massive Batman fan. I actually think that regardless of what people say, I'm probably gonna love it. I mean, like, Zoe Kravitz is Selena. Like, oh my God. Anyway, so, but I have to be like in a specific place to watch
Mhm.
these things, and I have not been in the place to watch Stranger Things this last season. So,
Okay, that's
anyway,
fair.
but
Because it
anyway,
is very heart-wrenching, the last
yes,
season, I will say that.
but I love it. I love the show. Before I had my son, whenever the new ones would come out, I would watch them all in a row without stopping. Like, very into the show. So
Yeah,
you take
so
it from there with Stranger Things.
yeah, yeah, and I won't really talk spoilers anyway because I don't think that needs to really be said, but,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
this show, when it came out, I don't think I jumped right on it like a lot of people did. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure I watched it a little, like, a few months after it came out or maybe
Yeah.
even a year, I'm not even quite sure.
Yeah.
Um, but if you know me, I love movies or shows or anything that has, like, coming of age stories because people don't think that this is, but it is.
100%
Because
it
they're
is.
dealing with yes, they're dealing with monsters and other worldly things. They're still kids, they're still growing up, they still have their regular lives that they're dealing with. So, like, anything like that to me is great. I'm a huge fan of Stand By Me, Lost Boys, and actually The Goonies. Those are my top 3 favorite movies, actually.
Love
The
the
Goonies is
Goonies.
my favorite movie of all time. So
Ugh,
so
I
yeah. And then also all of them are from the 80s. This show takes place in the
in
80s.
the 80s.
I'm a huge 80s person. I was
Mhm,
born in the late 80s, but I lived through the 90s, as
mhm.
you too.
Yeah,
But, like, I don't know what it is about the 80s. I just feel like it is an era that I would have loved if I was, more like if I was older.
yeah,
Um, the music, the movies, a lot of fun things. Just like I know there's every era has their flaws, of course, but I don't know. There's something about the '80s that always grabs me.
yeah.
So yeah, the fact that this show takes place in the '80s, you get to see all the retro clothing,
Mhm.
sets, everything.
Yeah.
Just great. And
Mhm.
a lot of people too, they don't I don't know why, but people don't relate this some people don't relate this show to horror, but to me it is a sci-fi horror.
It's sci-fi horror. Yeah, no, I would
Yep,
say the same thing. Yep.
exactly. And
Yeah, yeah.
you can break that apart too. You could say it's sci-fi, you could say it's horror, but to me it's a sci-fi horror 'cause
Agreed.
it crosses both checks both off for me.
Yep.
There's also a lot more to it as well than that. There's drama aspects, there's comedy. I mean, it pretty much does a little bit of everything.
Everything.
The
Yep.
characters are written so well that you just fall in love with them. They're just like
Mhm.
these most adorable like people that you just love, and you're just like you don't want anything to happen to any of them.
No, you don't. You're
Um,
right.
yeah, so and it's hard to even pick favorites because yes, I have a top 4 favorite of my characters, but at the same time I literally love like everybody in the show because they're so nuanced and different. And
Which is super rare. I never watch anything that I feel that way about that many characters.
exactly, I agree with
Never.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, because the
Yeah.
Duffers do a really good job of just making everyone unique to themselves and
Mhm. Yep.
just but yeah, so like the horror aspect to me, um these they're kids and they're dealing with these grandiose monsters and just these scary otherworldly things that are happening to them,
Mhm.
like I said, while dealing with their own lives and
Real life
problems.
things, like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and it's
Yeah.
just like I would be scared of these things happening, but they're like kids, so they don't even know, and they're from like a small town where not a lot happens, so like
Mhm.
there's that aspect that adds to the fear.
Mhm. Yeah, you're
um
right.
yeah, so it's just, yeah, this show though, I think at first a lot of people like jumped on it at first. They liked it, but I think
Mhm.
in season 2 people fell off a little cuz season 2 is probably the most flat of the seasons.
Mhm.
But it picked back up in season 3.
I
I think
love
dropping
season
it
3.
season 3 is like my comfort season.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Scoops Ahoy and everything, I love
Oh
it.
my, the way that the intro, okay, first of all, like Dustin and C's relationship is like the cutest shit I've ever seen in my life. And
Yes.
their reaction when they see each other after being apart for that summer or whatever,
So
like my heart, I couldn't take it. I was like, this is the cutest fucking
I
thing I've
know,
ever
I
seen.
love it. I
It's so
know.
sweet. I love their friendship so much because I genuinely remember thinking in season 1 that he was actually going to end up being like a dismissed character because of how he kind of was with Nancy and like he gave like villain vibes. Like I wasn't sure where they were
Yeah.
going to go, but they totally changed and turned his arc around and he ended
Yes.
up being like one of my favorites.
Yep. Steve is like I feel like I relate to Steve in a lot of ways. So he's one of my
Yeah.
favorites. Dustin's
Yeah.
another favorite.
Oh my God, I love Dustin. These aren't
And
even
then
Will wafers. He's my favorite. The shit that comes out of his mouth, like
I
I,
know
I can't. When he like he goes to when he goes to whose house does he go to? He goes to somebody's house, and he's like trying
Mike's
to find
probably.
them, and he can't get anybody, and he's like, "This is bullshit," and he's like, "Watch your mouth!" Like he just doesn't like Dustin. Just like he that's lit. That's me even as an adult. Dustin
Yeah.
is literally me as an adult.
Yes. No, I know. Dustin was my first ever favorite character because
Yeah, same.
he didn't give a shit. He's just like he's just great. And
Yeah,
then like Steve became a when his arc changed, he became another favorite. Robin, when she got introduced in season 3, she became a
love her.
favorite. And then
Yeah.
my fourth favorite is from season 4. I won't say anything.
Okay.
But yeah. So like I don't know, it's just these characters, they're so relatable. Like I said, the horror aspect gets pumped up each season as you go, at least in my
Mhm,
opinion.
mhm.
Because in the first one, Will's missing, and like so there's that, and
It's a lot more people parts.
yes,
Yeah.
there's a lot of like
Background,
exactly a lot of
setup.
character
Yeah.
building, things like that, kind
Yep.
of
Yep.
tying the D&D aspect to it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but I feel like it really, and as you get to season 4, it's probably the most horror driven season.
Okay.
I will say that,
Yeah.
and
I think I've
it's
heard other people say that too.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just really like these monsters too, they're not just physically there, they play like some of them play on your fears and your emotions too.
Mhm.
Like Will's like connected by like he can feel the senses,
Mhm.
and things like that. So that's like,
Mhm.
you know,
Right.
so there's all that. Like so there's not only there's like psychological horror, but also like physical monsters. So it's just I don't know, there's just so much about it. And the fact that this show kind of went from like I mean, it's still on Netflix. It's probably their biggest draw, I think. And maybe something has I think something might have surpassed that now, maybe Wednesday. I'm not sure.
Oh,
But I
maybe,
feel
yeah.
like Stranger Things is still going to be like Netflix's biggest thing. Cause I don't know. It's just, there's no one that can't watch that show and not relate to someone in it.
Something.
Like,
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
parents are not into horror, sci-fi, anything. They started watching it, and they
Uh-huh.
just got addicted, and, like, they finished it within like, a short amount of time too.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I was very shocked when that happened, and I was so happy because I was like, "This is my favorite show, my
It's
god."
so good. Yeah.
But yeah, it just has something for everyone, and
It does.
if you're not really normally into, like, sci-fi or horror, I feel like it could be a good gateway thing to bring you into more of that.
Yeah, and then also if you already are, I think it feeds a lot into that too. So you see both
Mhm.
sides of it because I definitely like sci-fi horror is definitely one of my favorite things because I think genre wise, I think those two go like they're meant for each other. They go so well together. And this was like, and I loved the D&D elements in the first one when they, like I don't know, like there, like you said, there really is a little bit of so many different things in this. You've got love stories, you've got drama, you've got family problems, you've got real life, the kids like growing up and things changing,
Yeah.
like from things like the dance, like when like that the one scene in when Dustin goes to the dance and Steve helped him do his hair or tells him what to do,
Yeah.
and the girls like won't dance with him and Nancy goes to dance with him. Like there's just these really just like warm, heartfelt moments in between the moments of action and intense like monster things. Like there's
Mhm.
it's insanely well balanced.
Yes.
And I don't know a lot of things, particularly that have gone on for this long as a show, that have done all of that and still like kept it cohesive like they have. They've done a really good job with that.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There's something for everybody with Stranger Things,
Yeah. No.
for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad that one was on your list because I haven't talked about that
Yeah.
one yet. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so Scream, Midsummer, House of a Thousand Corpses, Terrifier 2, and Stranger Things. It's a fun list.
It's quite a like, a multifaceted list, but that's me, I'm a weirdo.
No, I love it. I think it's awesome. Yeah. Okay, cool. Once again, all of CeCe's links are going to be in the description for this episode, so you can go check her out, what she's up to, get some bracelets.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's all I have for this episode of Five Influential Horror. CeCe, thank you again for making time. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed talking to
Thank you, it's been
you.
great.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Have a good rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend coming up, and I'll see you in the next one.